Welcome back. We are GDD403. That's problem solving with data structures and algorithms in the winter 2023 semester at Canada. And it's week 4, part 3 of our broadcast and recording. And where last we left off, we put all these cards in play. We actually developed the card class a little bit, and these are pretty good. If you run this code right now, it's good to go. It kind of allows you to drop the cards into play, and which is pretty good. And that is the first part of what we wanted to do for your assignment 1, which is do this. This is in class exercise 2, which builds everything you need for assignment 1. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this up on GitHub for this next part. And this is where I want you guys to stop, right? I want you, when you demonstrate it, I want you to show me that any card you put in here, so it doesn't matter if I put in, let's say a 2 of spades, or we'll put another card, like an 8 of spades, right? Here's an 8 of spades. We'll put that in there, right? We'll put that in the spades area. And you can see whether we put an 8 of spades or a 6 of diamonds or whatever. Here's our 6 of diamonds. We'll put that maybe over here, right? No matter what we put in here, when I press play, it's going to do a couple things. One, I have control over facing it up. So I can kind of choose something and then flip it over if I want to. Toggle that flip, okay? And the other thing is, no matter what I choose, right, it's going to automatically discover its value based on the name. Naming conventions are the way we did it, okay? So that's how it's like this. So that's kind of how it's working. And this way we can add the same script, same card script for every game object, which is pretty cool. All right, now there's one last thing that I want to do, okay? And which is I'd like to organize all of these cards that we're bringing in. And again, I'm showing you a couple of cards here, 8 and 6. But and I want you to choose a selection of cards. Prove to me that it works for every card, okay, when you're doing your video. But these cards should be in some kind of parent class or parent game object. So I'm going to kind of take all these cards that are in the scene, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to create empty parent. And then I'm going to make this parent class, or parent game object, we're going to call this cards. Okay, like this. And the reason why I'm making it square brackets is because later on, we're going to have things like camera. Actually, I'll just do it now. You can make a new empty object we'll call camera. And actually, I'm going to do that. Let's just go to the camera and make a new parent object. We'll call this cameras. Maybe we'll have more than one. Right? So that's the main camera. And then the table is part of the environment. So we'll say another empty parent, which we'll call environment. Or we might have some props like the table, right? Our game controller is part of what we're doing. And then you can see how I can collapse these. And the direction light is part of the environment. Let's put that in the environment as well. So we can kind of, hide this stuff in there, right? And then you can see that it kind of looks like this, where the game controller should be kind of down here. So it should be cameras, environment, some cards, and then the game controller. And this kind of organizes our scene a little bit too. All right. So now that we have all this, let's file, save project. And just like we did before, I'm going to be using command line to put this up on GitHub. But you can use whatever tool you want to put it up on GitHub. In fact, we can even use Visual Studio. So under Visual Studio, notice at the bottom here, it detects way at the bottom. I'm going to use my annotation tool to help me to show this to you. Look down here, right? At the bottom. It kind of shows me the, I'll even make it in yellow so we can really look at it right here, this part. That is the name of your repository right there, right? Do you see that in your Visual Studio? If you don't, you may not be using Visual Studio Enterprise, but you should see it. Do you guys see it? Yes or no? Good, excellent. If you see this part, that means that it's registered or it detected the Git repository that's online, it's already detected it here in Visual Studio. And what we want to do with it is we could use command line, but there's a command line that's built into Visual Studio. So I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to go to Terminal. Let's go there. And under Terminal, we're going to see that we have an integrated command line in Visual Studio. This is kind of similar to Visual Studio Code. So if you're someone who loves Visual Studio Code, you press, Control backtick, and it brings up your little terminal in Visual Studio Code. You can do here and go View, Terminal, and unfortunately, there is no shortcut key that's a default assignment for here, but you can see that Terminal will bring up the terminal window. Are you with me? Do you have the terminal window up? If you do, all you need to do is this: git add dot, which adds all this stuff that we just added, right? And then I can clear that up, and I can do git commit -m, and I can say that the thing that we're adding in is added project files for ICE2. And then the last command is, so it's git add, git commit, git push. And then you can do git push, and it'll push it up to GitHub. And it'll do everything here just like it would normally do on your command line. That's why I got you guys to install the command line stuff last week, because then you can have complete control here in Visual Studio. And this is definitely a way to do that. Okay, now, how do we check to see if it's there? Remember our GitHub repository. If I go to github.com and then /Canador, I've changed some stuff, right? I actually put the logo here so you can see it's your college, right? And then here it is. You can see now that we have this, which is my winter 2023 ICEs, and you should see both in-class exercises here. This is how I want your repository to look. So you have a master repository, and then both repositories inside of it for all the repositories for all of our in-class exercises are right here, okay? And let me give you this link again. So if you want to ever compare your code with my code, you can always go here, okay? It's always public, and you can see it. Next, I need to make the ability for me to put it up on, kind of my stuff up on GitHub pages. So GitHub is not just a place to put up your files, but it also gives you a free website, okay, for every project. So here in this repository, if I go to settings, go there with me, please. Go to yours, go to settings. And then on the left, right, you can see that we have pages. Now, the only way pages would work, this gives you like a place to host your personal, organizational, or project pages from a GitHub repository. It's very simple, but it needs to be public, which means we need another repository that we're going to create for this one. And we're going to do it after this, okay? So it's a separate thing for your in-class exercise, right? You're going to have a repository for all of your in-class exercises, and you're going to have one repository that you're going to use for your live site stuff, okay? One repository. We could make it multiple repositories for this. It's truly up to you. And let me explain how this works. So right now, we only have one repository, this one. I'm going to make another one empty right now. Let's do it together. You do it for yourself, just like we did last time. I'm going to go into my account. You're going to go into your account, and I'm going to click New, right? And this time, keep it public, please. Okay, so it's not a private repository, public. And you're going to call this repository something like GDD403, right, dash winter 2023. And we're going to call it live site, okay? And this live site repository, let's actually make it more specific. We'll say ICE live site. And the reason why is maybe I'll get you to do an assignment live site too. So it's separate, right? Because then your assignments and ICEs are totally different, okay? So if I did this and if I press enter, I have this new empty repository that does nothing right now. Okay, so if I was to actually look there, you can actually see it too. And if I go to Canador, you're going to see that this is live site and this is ISIS, and they're totally different. Okay, two different repositories. Now it's giving you some steering instructions here, all right, that you'll see on your end. You won't see it if you go to mine. Mine will say there's nothing here, right? But this is what you see right now, something that looks like this. What we need to do is we're going to build, this is the next step. We're going to build our project for WebGL. And the only way you can do that is when you went to Unity Hub, you need to install WebGL as one of the modules, right, in your installation process. I kind of talked about it last week. You may have missed it. But the way it is you need at least, like I said last week, 2 modules. One of them is WebGL, and the other one is Windows. You don't need Android, not required. Okay, you don't need that. I put Android in because I'm also doing mobile game programming at George Brown this semester and in other places, and you don't need to do that. All right, so all you need is WebGL and Windows, and then you'll be able to have both 2 targets for your build platforms. Okay, that's what I need. In order for you to do that, if you don't have that, remember that you can always add them back in. So let's suppose I want to add to my 2022 1F1 another installation. I can go here into my settings and I can add modules, and I can select the module that I didn't download. Let's say, for example, I wanted to include iOS support. I can click on iOS support and click install. It'd be the same thing for you when you're installing WebGL support, right? You would have a little checkbox there. You would check it and click install. Notice that it's 2.53 gigs. So it's not small, right? Please do that if you can't do this next step.
The button for adding modules doesn't show up for me.
So if you go here and you go to this doesn't show up?
Yeah, there's only show and explore and uninstall. Or so no, it's just remove from hub for me.
Okay, here's something. What version of Unity Hub do you have? If I go to here to preferences, remember I said I like to use the beta channel. Do you have the beta channel on?
I have the production channel.
Sorry?
I have the production channel.
Switch it. This is the reason why I told you guys to do the beta channel, because it gives you more functionality. Try this out. It's going to reinstall Unity Hub for you, and it will give you that extra functionality, which I find very helpful.
Okay.
Try it out. I'm going to give you a second to tell me that you're ready to go.
It's not really done anything, so.
It doesn't do this?
No.
Can't be. Did it install something yet?
It didn't. Yeah, it didn't install anything.
At the top, it should say install Unity Hub, blah, blah, blah. In a second, it should give you this little notification at the top. Like example, if I switch from Unity Hub from my beta channel, if I switch back to production, right? I'll show you. If I close this, and if I switch back to production, in a second, what this is going to do is it's going to tell you to install thing. And one way to do that is to shut down Unity Hub and restart it, right? So if I restart it, and if I go back, it's going to say something like, hey, install this other piece. It should say that eventually, okay? And if it doesn't, give it a second. Like, it's just like when you check for updates. If you go to, like this is in my production channel, right? But what happens is you can actually do, it'll eventually check for Unity updates and it'll do it for you, okay? I don't want this. I want to go back to, my beta channel, which is the thing to do. But the other thing to do is there's another way to do it, and I'll show you that in a second. No, you don't need dedicated server. We're not going to do that this semester. So again, close down Unity Hub, and also one thing you may have to do is close down Unity. Sorry, I have to mention that as well. Because if you go to open up and make sure it's closed down here inside of your little hotbar in here, like close it completely down, quit Unity Hub, right? And then when you reopen it, it might give you the directions to install things again. You might say, hey, install, whatever the channel is going to be up here. Okay. And that's what puts you into the beta channel. For now, mine's still going to say advanced beta because that's what I left it as. All right, let's open up my in-class exercise 2. There you go. 3.41. That's the way to go. But it should also maybe ask you if it might give you the beta channel, which gives you the other way to look at it is if you don't have that module set up on installs, when you go to do when you go to build, here's the other way it's going to show up. Example, if I go here and if I go to file, let's do this together, build settings. Try that again. File, build settings. And if I try and run iOS, it'll say install with Unity Hub. Do you see that?
All right, so how'd you open that? It's
file, build settings. And then you'll see here, if you want to try WebGL, it'll say install with Unity Hub.
It says open download page for me.
Okay.
I think because we installed it late and it's not a officially supported thing through our thing, we have to download everything manually for this.
Terrible. Terrible.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. Do it because you need it for this part.
Okay, I'm downloading. I think this is an installer.
Yeah.
It's an exe file, so I'm just gonna execute it when it's done.
So what I want to do first, when you get to this point, is in the video, obviously you're going to watch it later. Hopefully some of you did this. Under WebGL, I want to click switch platform. So that's what we're going to do, switch platform. And switching platforms is actually going to rejig some of our textures for our objects that are in the scene. So things that might seem okay, and everything else here for a Windows build is going to switch over to this. Give it a sec until this little warning sign goes away, which says it cannot build player while editor is importing assets. It's going to continue to compile scripts until it switches. Now, warning, whenever we do this, anytime we build for WebGL, it takes between 7 and 15 minutes to get the build done. Okay. And it's unfortunate that it takes so long, but it does because it uses all kinds of resources to switch it over. What it's doing is converting your project into WebAssembly and so it can make it work, and JavaScript and HTML. So now that I've switched over to WebGL, then under player settings, again, you have to watch the video later on for those people who have to do this later. Hopefully did any one of you install by chance WebGL when you installed Unity? Hopefully you did, someone. Maybe not.
So because we used an older version when we first did this, I'm assuming everybody in the class is probably going to have to manually download this because we had to manually download version 2022.
2.1F1. Okay.
Yeah.
How close are you guys to finishing? Should I wait or should I continue?
I'd say continue, and I could just watch the video back. It's
Yeah,
nearly
'cause some
installed for
people
me.
have slower internet than others, depending on where they're at.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
Mine's gonna take about an hour before it's done.
Oh my God. Sorry, so sorry, Scott. All right, so WebGL. So remember, WebGL is it's like doing OpenGL 3D on the web. That's what it is. It's that kind of thing. When I go here and click WebGL, and I basically had switch platform. That's what I did. It converted everything. Now I need to go to player settings and do some configuration in player settings. When I click player settings, then what you're going to see is a couple of things. There are a couple of tabs here. Each tab in player settings is going to be related to the platform you're building for. The first one is the Windows platform. And then you might have a dedicated server, which I'm not using. And There's the Android platform, because I installed Android on mine as well, right? Which, if you want to talk about big, that's huge, right? And then WebGL. Here's the WebGL settings. In the WebGL settings, there's a number of, kind of collapsed area, like an accordion in here. And in this little accordion area, you're going to see that there is icon, which there's nothing applicable, resolution and presentation. And this is the first thing we're going to change in WebGL. One, I want to change the default canvas width to 1024, just like we matched when we did our game, we said 1024 by 768. So too will the canvas be 1024 by 768. That's the first configuration change. Okay. There's nothing to save here. This is interesting. It kind of saves your settings as you go. All right. Splash image. I'm not going to make any changes here, but you could include a really cool 2D image of your game that's up here. Let's close this up. Other settings. Okay. It looks like my color space is gamma, right? And gamma is an approximation of, my colors. That's what it does. So one thing that it does is if you were to, you can change some of these options, right? So this one, we want to switch to linear color space, okay, not gamma. Linear is better. I want to change to linear. It's going to look better for us. It's going to take a second to change. It won't take long. And what it is, it's a color approximation. It's an algorithm that it uses for setting up your color space, okay? Auto graphics API. If I uncheck that, you're going to see that it says WebGL2 is what we want to use. Okay, so that's what we want to keep it checked. Static batching, we're going to leave alone. Dynamic batching, we're going to leave alone. Graphics jobs and all this kind of stuff, we're going to leave alone. Down here is the biggest change, .NET Standard 2.1. We want to make it so it's .NET Framework. All right, that's going to take a second to recompile. Wait for it. It's going to compile scripts. It's going to take a second. Okay. It's also using the old input manager. That's what's happening here. There we go, .NET Framework. And that's very good. Okay, I want to collapse this part now. Finally, publishing settings. Let's click this. On the bottom, you're going to see the compression format, which is gzip. It's bad. Please switch it to Brotli, which is a better compression. And we're going to use this other option called decompression fallback. Click on it, right? What this means is if somehow your browser or the platform that you put in this stuff up to, in a second, we're going to put it up to to GitHub pages, right? If it does not support decompression, it's going to work anyway. If you don't have this checked, it's not going to work, right? So what happens is if your platform supports decompression, it's going to compress everything. If it doesn't support decompression, it will leave it uncompressed. Okay. Those are the settings. So up on the top here, we also want to change the company name. I'm just going to call this Canador College. That's the company name. Our version should be 0.2. Our product name should be the name of our in-class exercise. All right. And if we do more builds like next week and the week after or whatever, we'll change these settings. All right. Every single time. So again, Canador, ICE2, 0.2, resolution and presentation. We changed to 1024 by 768. We kept the default WebGL template. There is also a minimal WebGL template as well as a progressive web app WebGL template, which we may look at later. Okay. But default is where we want to go. And then splash image, we didn't change. Other settings we did change. We changed our color space to linear. And we also changed our API compatibility level with .NET Framework, right? We're still going to do a release mode. This is C++ compiler configuration. We left it here, but we could change these settings later on if we want to do debugging, right? And finally, our publishing settings here are Brotli for compression format and decompression fallback is checked. Yay. Now, after we've done this, we can close this off. And it's saving everything for you. Let's just save, just for good measure, we'll file, save project. And then what we want to do with our WebGL, make sure that your scene is inside the build settings. And you might see your scene look like this. If there's nothing inside the build settings here, your project will never build. What you can do is you can do two ways. You can say add open scenes. That's one way you can do it. Or, so if I click onto it, it'll add the open scene in here, the scene main, right, that we called. Or we can always just go to scenes and then drag and drop it in. Okay, it's up to you how you want to do it, but your scene must be here in order for you to build. Okay, it must be here. Then what we see, what's happening here is we can see that we're ready to go. And now I can go down in here and go build and run. Now I got to talk about build and run. When we do a build and run, it gives me an extra folder. It's going to ask me for a folder I want to build and run. I'm going to build and run inside my project, my in-class exercise 2, right? And then when I'm done building and running locally, I'm going to take a copy of my build folder and move it into my new folder that I'm going to use for my live site. It's a couple of steps. And once we've done this at one time, it's going to be more apparent how we're going to do it. Okay. So let's do the build and run first. Let's do a build and run. And it's going to point to, our project. This is my project folder. I'm going to make a brand new folder here, my project folder called builds. And inside my builds folder, I'm going to kind of click into that builds folder here and click select folder. So I'm selecting the new folder I just made. Select folder. And then this is going to do its thing. Now, I'm online here and you can see me, but as it's going through this process, I'm going to spark out, depending on the speed of your computer and the kind of GPU you have, right? This could take anywhere between 8 minutes, 7 minutes, and 15 minutes, half an hour. Really depends on your machine, okay, to make it work. I've never seen it take anything less than 5 minutes, but this is just me, okay? Now I got to talk about what this is doing, and I got to talk about, if I spark out, you know what's happening. I might sound like a robot in a second. And let me talk about this as what it's doing. It's going to start using my GPU to convert my project over from C# to WebAssembly. That's what it's going to do, okay? And you can see that it's linking and building and all that stuff right now. If it does it really quick, I'm going to eat my words because I've never seen it go that fast, right? It kind of hangs here for a long time. Now I got to talk about my system again, just one more time, so you understand what I'm running. I'm running an Intel i9 10900K, which is a couple of generations back, right? I've got 64 gigs of RAM and an SSD. I'm running everything on SSD, liquid cooled. I build my own system, right? And I have an RTX 3070. That's what I'm running here. What this is going to do is it's going to try and use my RTX 3070 occasionally to do some build processes. Okay. Again, this could take some time to do, and you got to give it a chance. Why I might spark out is because, see, it's happening already. I'm using something called, here it is. I'm using something called NVIDIA Broadcast. And so what's happening is my video and my audio is piping through my GPU, right? And it's being cleaned up by my GPU. It's cleaning up all pops and hisses and fan noise and all that stuff. Okay, and that's why sometimes I spark out. The advantages of having your home workstation. So we're going to hang here for a bit while you guys are downloading. Anyone closer to being downloaded other than Scott? Scott, I feel so bad. An hour? Did you say an hour to download it? If you have an if you have an RTX version card, yes. NVIDIA Broadcast is free if you have an RTX card. If you have a GTX card, it won't work for you. Yeah, it'll work, Justin, as long as it's an RTX, right? Try it out. Download NVIDIA Broadcast. It's great. Oh my God, my mind is blown. I can't believe it's finished already, right? And you can see that the cards are here. Now, there's no way for me to do anything with the cards, but it actually built. Wow, right? Oh, Scott, I'm so sorry, man. I'm loving it, right? Here's something you can do. You can full screen it if you want to. And eventually we're going to be able to select these cards. We can't do it today, We're going to select these cards and then we can flip them over, right? Or do whatever. All right, but this is the Unity build and it works locally. Really great, actually. It works locally. I know, isn't that crazy? Right? Oh boy. All right, so now that it works locally, right? This is great. What I want to do is go to my operating system, right? And we can see if I go to my operating system, let's just go there. So I'm going to go to desktop. And you can see here, I've got my ICE2. Let me just get rid of this. Just going to put that inside of here. There we go. Just so that that's out of there. And sorry, I'm going to just go back to my my desktop here. And you can see that I have a builds folder, right? This builds folder is where all this stuff is. Now, this builds folder is not going to go up to GitHub. It's not going to go up there. Why? Because of my gitignore file. If I open up my gitignore file for a second so you can see it, I'll open it up here in what? Failed to download file, loading WebGL pages via file URL with web server is supported by this browser. Please use, yeah, you can't double click. You can't double click. You won't be able to double, it should run automatically, Justin. It shouldn't, I don't know why it's giving you that. The reason why I would normally give you that is if you double click on it. If you just build it and then try and run it manually, it will never work. You have to build and run, okay? So here, I'm just showing you the gitignore file. In the gitignore file, you can see that we have both builds and build are being ignored, right? That means if I put anything in the builds folder or the build folder or an object folder or temp or library or logs or user settings, all of these things are ignored. That's what this all is, right? So, okay. So what I want to do then is, even if I push it, let's go back to this and let's push it back up to GitHub. If I say git dot git commit -m, and I'll say I by accident I added in my zip archive, right? Let me show you this. So if I go back to here, and if I look at my files here, by accident, I added in my zip archive, right? And it shouldn't go up there. It shouldn't go up there, and it didn't. It kind of said, no, I don't want zip archives to go up, right? Okay, that's cool. I'm glad that you rebuilt and everything's good. So, so then I can push this up to, you know, up on GitHub. So I can say something like removed. Or I can just say added WebGL support, added WebGL build support, which is kind of what we did. You can see that the project settings changed as an asset automatically, and the editor build settings changed, right? And then if I press enter, it's going to take that. And if I do git push, it'll have all those things pushed up to all the changes remembered and pushed up to GitHub. So then if I go back to GitHub and refresh, you can see that I have an extra commit there for ICE2. So this is what this did, right? And it tells you where it is in project settings. You'll see that the asset that is your build support has been changed. And then you'll see that wherever it's been changed, it'll be here. All right, let's get back out. So that is, we added a WebGL build support. And now what I want to do is I want to take that folder that's on the operating system file. So again, we built. Step one, we built. Once we build, we have this builds folder, right? And I want to make a brand new repository outside of my in-class exercises, right? So way out here in Canada land, right? I want to make a brand new repository, new folder called GDD403, you know, kind of winter 2023, and then ICE live site. And the reason why I need to do this because my ICEs, your ICEs, would be in a private repository, right? My ICEs are public, but I need to make a public, you need to make a public repository where you can host your site. If it's not public, it'll never work, okay? So in here is where I want to put the build in a brand new folder. So again, I'm going to go back into the builds folder of my ICE2, and I don't want to copy the builds folder. I want to copy the stuff that's inside of it. So it looks like index, templates, streaming assets, and build. I'm going to grab all these 4 files. I want to copy them. I'm not deleting them. I'm not cutting them. I'm copying them, right? And then I'm going to go back out to the other folder I just made, which is way out in Canada land here, the containing folder. And then I want to press paste. And those are all the things that I copied from the other project, from in-class exercise 2. It's a copy. But here's the key thing. It cannot have another containing folder inside of it. So if I want to put in-class exercise live site up on GitHub, you must be able to see in the root of the folder, the index.html file. If you don't see this index.html file, it will never go live. It will fail, okay? So now that I have this, I need to make this a Git repository. Let's do that next. So again, I'm going to pull up my command line tools. You can also use other tools if you don't like command line. I'm going to say cd space, and I'm going to go here to my new folder, live site, drag and drop. So you can see that I'm kind of teleporting into this. So cd space, and then I'm going to go and change directory to this. Here it is, right? And now that I'm in here, I'm going to do a git init for the first time. I'm initializing a new repository locally, right? Git add dot, which is going to add all the files. I'm not using a git ignore file here, okay? And git commit -m initial commit. These are the things that we used last time to create our Git project for the first time. That's what we did. I know I'm running over time, guys. Give me a few more minutes and I'm done, okay? And then what I want to do is I want to grab those steering instructions from online that we made with a brand new project. So I'm going to go back up to our Git project here, which is empty, right? Which is this new one, GDD403 live site. It gives me some steering instructions right here. I want to grab these last 3 lines of code, copy them, and go back to my command line and right click and enter. And then it's going to push my site up to the new repository. 2 separate things. Your in-class exercise all in one repository. This live site has only one thing, and it's the repository that we want to show online, okay? So if I go back to this is the new live site repo, and if I refresh now, you can see that I can see my index.html. If you cannot see your index.html, this will never work the way I'm going to tell you next. This is the last part. Now that this is up here, we need to attach this to a GitHub page. And the way to do this is in the live site repo, not your other one, the live site repo. You're going to go to settings. Then on the left, you're going to choose pages, right? And then you're going to say where it says deploy from branch, you're going to choose the main branch, right? This main branch right here, main. And once you've chosen the main branch, you're going to click save. And when you do that, it's going to generate a brand new live site for you, a place where your files are going to show up. But it's not going to be immediate, right? It's going to generate a brand new thing. So it says, now that I've saved, it says Git pages source saved. And if I go back to my main view, which is my code view, this one, you're going to see an orange dot right here next to your commit. The first commit, the only commit that you have for your live site. This little orange dot, if you click on it, you're going to see some checks haven't completed yet or something like that. It's actually doing a build of your project live, your site live on the web for you, right? It's going to take a few minutes. Give it some time. Refresh a couple times. Here's the first refresh. If I refresh now, and if I go in here, you can see that if I click on here, it's building and deploying my pages for the first time, right? And if I refresh again, you're going to see that it's in progress. It's building a new environment down here. And then finally, if I refresh again, it's going to say active. Once it says active, right? And I don't have to refresh. It's going to do it for you anyway, but I'm showing you that it takes time, right? If I click on this little check mark, you know, it's going to show you what it's done. And if I go down here and click on the environment, the GitHub pages environment, it's going to show view deployment. And if I did everything right and I click this button, then it's going to show me my live site here is going to have exactly everything we did. And this is available anywhere in the world. So here's an example. I'm going to give you this now. And I want you guys to try this out. Does this work for you? Check it. See if this works for you. Right? So that is your in-class exercise. I want you to do what we did, build it for WebGL. And why? Because from now on, whenever we build something, whenever you do an assignment or an in-class exercise, if you do it, I can check it. I can run your code by clicking a button, by going, hey, give me that link. So for your in-class exercise 2, one of the requirements, one of the tasks that you're going to see inside of your little lab report is make it live. And it's going to be like, go here, go to GitHub pages, do this, make another site. And it's going to tell you what to do. And it's going to be worth some marks, right? And then you're going to do this up here. And you're going to see this live on GitHub. I want you to submit 4 things this time around. Your live link to GitHub pages, this one, this thing here. A small YouTube video that's going to show me that everything is working with an image of your lab report that says here, like I did this task, this task, this task, right? The YouTube video or some kind of video from somewhere. Hopefully it's something I can click on, not an MKV file or a video file. Please don't do that, right? So some kind of streaming provider is what I'm saying. Mail, whatever, right? And then, or Loom, some people use Loom for some reason. So you have your GitHub link, your live site link, your YouTube link, and your lab report all submitted to me on your iLearn, up on iLearn. Okay. Yeah, I like it too. And I think it's not just for this, Justin, but any other kind of website you want to create. If you want to make a website that is like to make a portfolio website, you can do it on GitHub pages. Okay. Questions before we go for the day. And I will have stuff that I owe you. I owe you a lab report and I owe you an assignment, right? Those things will be done today. I'm that close to making the assignment work, right? And the lab report, I'm just going to update the lab report and put it up under your lab, your in-class exercise. It'll be there later today. Questions? Right? You don't have to do any of that stuff. And there's other stuff too I can give you, Justin. If you're looking to host your pages for free, I got a couple of other places you can host for free indefinitely. Okay, and they're good quality, fast, no problem. Okay. Questions before we go for the day? Guys, good luck on this stuff. I'm going to stop recording now and take any questions from the people that are here. And if you have a question, I can see if I can answer it. I still got some time before I have to do something else. Let's stop recording now.